There is a stretch of country in the American South where something is happening that no agency planned and no committee approved. Out past the last row of the cornfield, in the palmetto scrub and the blackwater sloughs and the weedy edges of the pasture, an old order is quietly reasserting itself. For decades, people fought a war here with money and machinery. They flew helicopters, they built traps the size of corrals, they counted the cost in billions, and all the while, out beyond the reach of the floodlights, an answer was taking shape in a language far older than any budget. This is the story of the feral hog, and it is really the story of what a landscape does when you finally let it defend itself. The wild pig is not native to this continent. It is sus scrofa, the same animal that lives on farms, gone wild and gone hard. Today, it runs through at least 35 states, from Florida to California to the cold country of the north. The best estimates put the number somewhere between 6 and 9 million animals, with more in Texas than anywhere else. For most of American history, it was a curiosity, a farmyard escapee rooting quietly in the bottomland. Then, sometime in the last few decades, that world changed. And the change began, as these things so often do, with a decision that seemed at the time entirely reasonable. The first pigs came ashore in the 1500s, brought by Spanish explorers who turned hogs loose along the Gulf Coast so there would be meat waiting on the next expedition. For centuries, they multiplied slowly along the margins of farms and free-range livestock. Then, around the 1930s, ranchers and sportsmen imported a second animal, the Eurasian wild boar, the Russian hog, released onto hunting preserves because people wanted something wilder to chase. Boars have a way of going under or through almost any fence. They escaped. They bred with the free-ranging farm stock. And the animal that resulted was tougher, smarter, and more fertile than either parent. For a long time, they stayed roughly where they were. Then people started moving them on purpose. Hunters, wanting hogs to chase closer to home, loaded them into trailers and released them across state lines, into county after county that had never seen a wild pig before. That single habit, humans hauling live hogs to new ground, did more to spread the animal than any flood or drought ever could. What followed was not a trickle, it was a takeover. To understand what happened next, you have to understand the pig itself. A grown feral hog commonly weighs 100 to 200 pounds, and a big boar can top 300 or 400, armored in a shield of gristle across its shoulders and armed with tusks that never stop growing. It eats almost anything: roots, crops, acorns, carrion, eggs, fawns, ground nesting birds, the nests of turtles, and even alligators. It carries dozens of diseases that can jump to livestock, to wildlife, to people. And it rototills the earth wherever it goes, tearing open pasture and stream bank and food plot in a single night as though a machine had come through. But the real weapon is not the tusks or the appetite. It is the breeding. A siubshul can be a mother by the time she is 6 or 8 months old. She can raise 4 to 6 piglets in a litter, and she can do it twice a year. Under the right conditions, a population can double in a matter of months. This is the number that defeats every simple plan. You can kill a great many hogs and still lose ground because the ones you did not catch are already raising the next generation. Stop the pressure for even a season, and the population comes roaring back. They arrived, in other words, in a country with almost no defenses against them. Warm, rich, full of food, and, crucially, nearly empty of anything big enough to eat them. There was nothing to tell them no. And so the people charged with holding the line began to spend. That is the number at the heart of this story. Feral hogs are now estimated to cause as much as $2.5 billion in damage every year in the United States, with crops destroyed, pasture ruined, fences and levees torn apart, livestock preyed upon, and hundreds of millions more spent simply trying to keep the animals in check. The federal government stood up a national feral swine program. Texas alone pours well over $100 million a year into control. And the researchers who assemble these figures are always careful to say the same thing the carp scientists said. It is almost certainly an underestimate. The tools are as aggressive as the number suggests: snares and corral traps baited and triggered by phone. professional shooters leaning out of helicopters over the brush country, night hunters with thermal scopes working the fields after dark, where hogs and coyotes move together in the heat signature of a southern summer, bounties in some counties, contract crews in others. It is relentless, expensive, and this is the hard part, it does not end. As long as the animal keeps breeding, the siege has no final day. The people fighting this war understand something sobering. They can hold the line, they can slow the spread, but they cannot, by spending alone, make the hogs disappear. Here is where the story turns. Because to understand what is beginning to push back against the hog, you first have to understand what this land used to have and lost. Long before the traps and the helicopters, the American South was full of predators. Great, patient native hunters that had ruled these swamps and hills for a very long time. And over the last century and a half, one by one, we pushed them to the margins or shot them out entirely. We did not simply leave the land undefended against the pig. We spent generations dismantling its defenses ourselves, and then acted surprised when the invader met no resistance. Now, slowly, some of those defenders are coming back, and they have discovered a strange new abundance of prey. The first is the one almost nobody pictures when they imagine a hog hunter. The mountain lion. We call it cougar, puma, panther, catamount, one animal with a dozen names, the great ambush cat of the Americas. It is built for exactly one thing: to close the distance in silence and bring down an animal much larger than a house pet in a single explosive rush. Across its range, it hunts mostly deer and elk. But a mountain lion is an opportunist, and where wild pigs are on the menu, it takes them. This matters because of geometry. The reason so little can eat an adult hog is simply that an adult hog is enormous, fast, and armed. It takes a real heavyweight to kill one. The mountain lion is that heavyweight. In the brush country of Texas and the oak woodlands of California, researchers who collar wild pigs and track what kills them find the cat's signature again and again. And in Florida, the evidence is even starker. For the endangered Florida panther, a mountain lion clinging to the southern tip of the state, wild pig has become a large and important part of the diet. An animal we nearly lost is now partly sustained by the invader we cannot get rid of. That is the thing about a true apex predator. It does not need to be stocked or funded or managed by anyone. It only needs to be allowed to be what it already is: a hunter at the top of the food chain, doing for nothing the work no helicopter can do cheaply. The second defender is older than the hills, and it carries the heaviest history of the three: the American alligator. To look at one is to look back in time. Its lineage runs back to the age of the dinosaurs. The animal in the water today is the near image of relatives that watched the first mammals scurry past. It can pass 10 feet in length and weigh hundreds of pounds. It waits, motionless, in the black water at the edge of the marsh, and when something large comes to drink, it moves faster than anything that size has a right to. A big alligator is one of the few native animals in North America physically capable of seizing and drowning a full-grown boar. And we very nearly wiped it out. For most of the 20th century, the alligator was hunted relentlessly for its hide. Across much of its range it collapsed, vanishing from waters where it had ruled for thousands of years. By the late 1960s, it was listed as an endangered species, a giant on the edge of disappearing. Then something rare happened. The country changed its mind. Protected from hunting, given its wetlands back, the alligator did something few endangered animals ever do. It recovered so completely that by 1987 it was declared restored and taken off the endangered list. It is one of the great comebacks in the history of American conservation. The giant we almost erased came back on its own and resumed a job it had held for 100 million years. The war between the gator and the hog cuts both ways, and that is what makes it real. The pig is not a passive victim here. In one Texas study, researchers watching alligator nests with cameras found that feral hogs raided roughly half of them, rooting out the eggs a mother gator had buried. There is even an old record of a large boar killing an alligator. The invader attacks the defender's young. The defender eats the invader's adults. This is not a fable with a tidy hero. It is two heavyweights in the same swamp, and for the first time in a long time, the swamp has its heavyweight back. The third defender is the one we hated most, and it may be the most persistent of all. The coyote. For a century, we treated the coyote as vermin. We put bounties on it. We poisoned it, trapped it, gunned it from airplanes, and we did all of this with a thoroughness we reserved for few other animals. And the coyote answered our war on it by doing the one thing we did not expect. It spread. It expanded out of the western plains and into nearly every corner of the continent, into swamps and suburbs and cotton country, thriving in the teeth of everything we threw at it. The coyote does not, as a rule, bring down a 400-pound boar. What it does is far quieter and, in its way, just as important. It works the nurseries. Piglets, small, soft, and everywhere, are exactly the kind of prey a coyote is built to take, and studies that track young hogs find their survival is far lower than the adults. The coyote is a big part of why, and it does not hunt alone. It is one voice in a chorus. Bobcats take piglets, foxes take piglets. Golden eagles and even turkey vultures have been seen killing young pigs in the open. Black bears take them where their ranges overlap. One species after another, the ordinary residents of the American landscape have looked at this strange flood of baby pigs and quietly added it to the menu. Scientists have a name for this: biotic resistance. The capacity of a native ecosystem to push back against an invader through its own hunger without anyone directing it to. There is one more twist, and this one belongs to the pig. The feral hog does not only fight back with tusks or by rooting out a gator's buried eggs. It carries a weapon its predators cannot see. Wild pigs are the natural reservoir of pseudorabies, Algeski's disease, sometimes called mad itch, a virus the pig itself shrugs off and then harbors silently for the rest of its life. To a hunting carnivore, it is a different thing entirely. A coyote, a bear, or a panther that eats an infected pig or scavenges a gut pile. A hunter left in the field can swallow the virus with the meal. In a predator, pseudorabies is frequently a death sentence. Carnivores tend to sicken and die so quickly that they never pass it on, which is why biologists call them a dead-end host. The documented victims include coyotes, black bears, wolves, and the Florida panther itself. That is the cruel arithmetic buried inside this story. The very wild pigs that help feed the endangered panther can also kill it. When researchers went back and re-examined decades of panther deaths, they found pseudorabies had been an important and badly underdiagnosed cause, responsible, by their best estimate, for roughly 1 in 11 of the radio-collared cats they could account for. The predator eats the invader. The invader poisons the predator from the inside. It is a sobering reminder that nature's answer is never clean. The mountain lion, the alligator, and the coyote are pushing back on the hog for nothing, but the hog is pushing back on them, with tusks, with raided nests, and with a disease. This is not a tidy war with a winner. It is a living system grinding its way slowly and imperfectly toward a new balance. Now, honesty demands that we be careful here, because the truth is more interesting than the fantasy. The fantasy is that 3 noble animals rode in and defeated a $2.5 billion invasion for free. That story would be a lie, and you would be right to distrust it. The people who study feral hogs will tell you plainly, in the United States, humans are by far the most significant predator of wild pigs. Where alligators and mountain lions and bears do hunt them, it remains a minor factor in the overall math because the pig simply breeds too fast for any predator to catch up. By the time a piglet has survived a few months, it has outgrown the coyote's reach. And in most of the country, hog numbers are still climbing, not falling. So this is not the story of 3 animals winning a war that billions of dollars could not. Anyone who sells you that is selling you a myth. What is actually happening is subtler and better. The land is doing what living systems do when you give them the chance. It is re-engaging. The mountain lion at the top end is learning that a boar is a meal. The alligator, back from the brink, is reclaiming its place as the giant in the water. The coyote and the bobcat and the eagle are thinning the young at the edges. None of them is the answer by itself. None of them will empty the woods of hogs. But together, they are something no agency can build and no budget can buy. A landscape that has begun, in its own slow and ancient way, to eat its invader. And the pressure they add costs nothing. It never sleeps. It does not need to be reauthorized by Congress. A mountain lion does not file for funding. An alligator does not run out of contract hours. A coyote asks for no bounty in reverse. Every hog these animals take is one the helicopters and the trappers do not have to. There is a lesson in this, and it is worth carrying with you. For a long time, we believed the way to fix a broken landscape was to engineer it, to fund the program, deploy the technology, impose the solution from outside. And sometimes that is exactly what is needed. The traps and the aerial gunning and the night hunters are holding a line that would otherwise be lost, and without them, the hog would be even further ahead than it already is. But the land is teaching us something the budgets could not. The most durable defense an ecosystem has is the one it grows itself. Bring back the predators. Protect the giant we almost skinned into oblivion. Stop poisoning the animal we called a varmint. And the system begins, slowly, to push back along lines far older than any plan we could draw. Think of what the alligator represents. A century ago, we looked at the largest predator in the swamp and decided it was worth more as a wallet, and we very nearly destroyed it. Now, facing an invader we cannot beat by force alone, we are grateful it survived, because it turns out it was never the problem. It was part of the answer all along. The same could be said of the lion we drove off the map and the coyote we tried for 100 years to erase. That is the quiet thing unfolding past the edge of the field. Not a war won. The hogs are still here, and they will be for a long time, but a balance beginning to return. A landscape that was written off as a battlefield, remembering how to be a living thing that defends itself. The people on the surface will keep spending, keep trapping, keep flying the helicopters, and they should. But some of the most hopeful work is happening when no one is watching. In the Blackwater, where an animal older than the dinosaurs waits at the edge of the reeds. In the brush country, where a great cat moves without a sound. And at the tree line at dusk, where a coyote, the survivor of every war we ever waged on it, trots out into the field to see what the night has left it. The land remembers what it was. And given even half a chance, given back the predators we took from it, it is reaching, quietly and without our permission, toward what it could be again.